Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dosing. I do apologize for not uploading a video yesterday. I had some things to take care of, so, instead I thought I would give you a little something today, especially because next generation news is heating up yet again. It was only about a week ago when we had heard that next generation consoles could potentially be delayed, which, focus on that word. We'll come back to that. But honestly, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if they were. A lot of gamers do seem to welcome that idea for various different reasons. But there is one thing that a lot of people have pointed to with that story, and I'm going to explain all of that today because we got news for both the next Xbox and also for the PlayStation 6. It does sound like Xbox could potentially be the first to jump in with a very interesting plan, an evolution of Xbox consoles, if you will. But first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with the Switch 2 and a ginormous game that could soon be on the way, being Final Fantasy XIV. Now, if you all know me, I'm more so in the mindset that this is a matter of when rather than if, because Square Enix over the past few years seems to have finally learned that, yeah, multi-platform is kind of a good thing for a lot of these bigger franchises. If you're not trying to sell a console, you probably should make your AAA game multi-platform. Square Enix, though, really did a number on the Final Fantasy series this past decade, and my thing about Final Fantasy is that, at the very least, when it came to Nintendo consoles prior to 2025, they just weren't capable of running a lot of the Final Fantasy games. But now with the Switch 2, though, that narrative has completely changed. And the thing about Nintendo is that because they're so dominant in Japan, it's really, in my opinion, a must for these Japanese publishers and any franchise that has recognition in Japan to put their game on the Switch 2. So I think the Switch 2 is going to get a lot of Japanese ports over the next few years, including, yes, Final Fantasy XIV. So that's been my logic for a while now, but we are now hearing something a little bit more official. Yeah, in a recent interview, Yoshi P actually said that regarding a Final Fantasy XIV Switch 2 version, as for Switch, please wait while looking forward to it. So, that seems kind of like a loose way of confirming something, but yeah, I definitely think that this is going to happen. Again, it's just more of a matter of when, and hopefully that will be sometime in 2026. Now, speaking of Japanese games, we also got a small update for the Okami sequel, and I don't think this is overly surprising, but it's still at the very least important information for anybody who is anticipating the long-awaited sequel. Unfortunately, it sounds like you're going to have to wait a bit longer because they said, "We are hard at work on the Okami sequel. Although the release is still a ways off, we cannot wait to get the finished game into your hands. We will continue to work tirelessly this year to deliver an experience that surpasses the expectations of players all over the world." So, more or less, it's not going to release in 2026. I wasn't really expecting 2026 anyways, and quite honestly, it wouldn't shock me if it's more of a 2028 or 2029 game. But either way, I don't think Okami fans are going to mind the wait. They've already been waiting for more than 20 years, so the fact that a sequel is even in development at all is good to know. Now, also a quick reminder that Anthem servers will shut down here in less than 2 weeks. They actually announced this last year, but for anybody who forgot, they will shut down on January 12th, and after that time, it's going to be gone forever. That's kind of the frustrating part about games that require online to play them. They only live for as long as the community can merit a reason to keep the servers running. And considering Anthem was a massive AAA flop for EA back in 2019, they decided that now is the time to pull the plug. So if you enjoy Anthem, and if you have a copy, even if it's physical, yeah, you might want to go ahead and play it before they shut it down again on January 12th. All right, now let's go and get into some next generation news, and I'm going to start off by addressing a rumor that we talked about a week or so back. It was previously reported by Insider Gaming that Sony and Microsoft are considering a delay for the next Xbox and the PlayStation 6 because of the uncertainty around pricing. Now, you have to kind of remember that word considering. I'll circle back to that, but obviously the AI boom has caused a lot of issues on the side of hardware and their availability. And as we've seen with the RAM situation, it's causing massive price hikes like we've never seen before, and that very well could impact the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox. Instead of, let's say, a $600 console, that could push them to potentially $800 or even $1,000+. Again, pricing is very uncertain as of this moment, so maybe Sony and Xbox are reconsidering their launch roadmap. However, this started making waves online yesterday, and it reads, reliable insider Moore's Law is Dead confirmed that the decision to delay the PlayStation 6 has not been made yet by Sony. He claims Sony already has contracts with TSMC to start manufacturing the PlayStation 5 APU mid-2027, and a decision on how much RAM it will end up having will be made very close to launch. He adds if the RAM situation is looking much worse by that time, then Sony could still make the decision to delay it. So this doesn't really debunk the original rumor per se, but I think for certain people, they're interpreting this as if they already have contracts in place for the PlayStation 6 to be made in 2027, and that they'll just kind of make a decision about RAM at that point, possibly to choose less RAM, and then they'll just release it as is because the consoles are already under contract and made. However, I will say in this case, Tom Henderson's response is very interesting to me. He simply responded by saying, LOL. He didn't say anything more than that, which kind of tells me that he's probably going to post another article sometime soon to clarify a bit more. But for now, the way I view this situation is that yes, both Xbox and PlayStation have contracts in place. In Xbox's case, they've actually been very public about their AMD contract as one such example. But I don't think that means that they can't delay their consoles as some people are interpreting. It absolutely could happen. And yeah, that could cause problems later on, just kind of depending on how long they have to delay it. But I listened to the video that Moore's Law put out, and from what I heard, both Tom Henderson and Moore's Law is Dead actually agrees on one very specific point, and that is that there is conversations happening right now about this exact issue within a lot of these companies, including, probably Xbox and PlayStation. So in other words, a delay is absolutely a possibility, but nobody has made a decision yet. That is the important part to remember here. I think for a lot of these companies that are working on new hardware as of this moment, they are at the very least talking about it, and they're likely going over a roadmap about all of the different possible outcomes because of this situation. But for now, they're just kind of preparing if this situation calls for. Because again, a lot of the pricing situation is still very uncertain. We do need to see how it plays out throughout 2026 and into 2027. Things could get better by the time they're ready to launch their consoles, or who knows, it could be worse. We have to wait and see. But for now, they are making those preparations just in case the need to delay. So that's how I take it. It's just a very fluid situation, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more about it throughout 2026. Now, with that said, though, we also got more information about Xbox's next console, and I said this before, but I feel like they're probably under a bit more pressure to release the next Xbox sooner rather than later. And that's more so just because of how they've positioned the Xbox Series. It's not been selling very well, in part because of some of the decisions that they've made. In fact, we just got a report that 2025 was comfortably the worst year ever for Xbox consoles in the UK. However, this prompted Jez Corden to imply that the declined performance of their console business has been intentional because they want to move devs to Xbox PC, to sell Xbox PC console hybrids in a boutique kind of a la Surface way, and work with OEMs to make Xbox PCs. And this is something that we've heard on various different occasions these past 12 months. The idea that their next console will be a PC console hybrid and that they are going to work with third-party companies on these OEM devices. I mean, we haven't only heard about that through leaks, but Xbox themselves have kind of alluded to that idea in their own way. I mean, a lot of the information that we've gotten could potentially be wrong, but it does kind of feel like that could be their future, a PC console hybrid that will be able to play Xbox games and also PC storefronts like Steam. And I think on paper, I genuinely think that sounds pretty fantastic. Now, I know there's some people that don't like that idea because they think, well, it's just a PC and nothing more. But no, not exactly. From my understanding, when you boot into the next Xbox, it's going to feel like an Xbox console. It's going to boot into a very console-like experience where you can play your entire Xbox library, which is something that you can't currently do on PC. Current PCs can only play a portion of Xbox games, but it sounds like Microsoft is trying to implement full backwards compatibility over top of a Windows backend for their next console. In other words, it's an Xbox Steam machine. Instead of Linux, it's going to use Windows as the backend, and I think that's a brilliant evolution of what Xbox is trying to be. I mean, if anything, it will be the most compatible console on the entire market. Now, in terms of success, we're going to have to wait and see how the market views a console like this, but I think at the very least, for anybody who has a big Xbox library, somebody that's been in the Xbox ecosystem for a long time, I think they're really going to enjoy a console like this. Something that's likely going to be ultra powerful by their own words. It's going to be able to play their Xbox games, it's going to be able to play your Game Pass games, and then on top of that, it's going to bring everything that we love about PC gaming, and potentially even with free online. So it's going to be a super compatible Xbox console that can live on for decades to come. And I think that that's actually very enticing. And because they're taking an OEM approach, which basically means that they're going to be able to license this OS out to other manufacturers, then their pricing likely isn't as locked down as somebody like Sony because they have a little bit more freedom to work with. Their next console will constantly evolve with new releases over a period of years. And just based on Xbox's wording, I think that they are going to put out an option that is head and shoulders more powerful than the competition. So I don't think that they're quite as concerned if the price eclipses that $1,000 mark. So I could see them releasing the super ultra powerful PC hybrid console in 2027. Now, some people are actually speculating that they could release it in 2026, which, I mean, we'll see. It is their 25th anniversary this year after all, so potentially, possibly. But for now, my personal prediction is 2027. Let me know what you think, though. What do you think about the rumors regarding the next Xbox? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.